call your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I give the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Will the Valley turn up at the primaries? Do not count on a big turnout for the primaries. That's what one headline reads. Now, these are the words of officials also in an article published February 18th by David Skolnick of the Vindicator. This report made it in because local activists continue to stress the need for voter awareness, especially when it comes to local issues and races. The passage of some controversial issues and tax issues is what still has this story trending, especially the ones that caused a slight uptick in property taxes locally. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2. 20 federal place sees another delay. David Skolnick has a piece in The Vindicator published February 19th about the most recent update on 20 Federal Street. It appears that construction plans have been pushed back again. As stated in the report, the $7.1 million upgrade plans, which started back in April of 2023, were scheduled for completion in November. Some issues with a wall caused a delay, but all of the asbestos is said to have been removed in the building. And this report has stayed in the headlines due to the sudden eviction of tenants and several pending lawsuits, one in which was settled by Subway. Folks, the report does say that there is progress being made. That's why story number 2 made it this week. 20 federal place. Big head. Story number 3. Above and beyond for the United Way. The United Way has set a new fundraising record by raising $3,742,311. The story made it in due to the continued growing need for charitable services in the local community. So story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4. How technology has helped locals seek justice, local people, local jurisdictions. Technology reigns supreme in the local justice system and in the local justice claims. According to one Vindicator report published February 21st, $3,500 in graffiti damage was found on the Wells building at 201 West Federal Street. Camera footage was used to capture 2 males doing the damage. If you didn't check out that story, now technology is also being used in the Crump murder trial of Rowan Sweeney, the murder. Now districts are also cashing in with speed cameras. This is all technology, folks. Each story shows how justice officials are utilizing technology to assist them in their work and investigations while also making a little bit of change on the side. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Story number 5. How did YSU dodge some layoffs? It appears that YSU's voluntary separation of retirement program helped the university avert some layoffs. The university still plans to make major cuts in several school programs, including media, music, and their marketing programs. Story number 5 is still trending. That's why I made it this week. Story number 6. Tax levy in Canfield is in the headlines. Schools remain on the minds of Canfield voters as they must decide on a bond levy for new schools. The number sits at $50 million in the discussions. That's the number that they're discussing about. Now, this story made it in because last November, voters rejected a $7.5 million bond levy. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 6 also made it to the top 2 this week. Big headline. Story number 7 and the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it to End Black History Month locally. I think of all the black historians that I've come across in this local community. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, some old, some young, but there's still plenty of them left. You know, I gotta credit myself. I'm still rumbling and stumbling through the books, trying to achieve greatness in mediation. Story number 7. Health concerns are the main issues that are coming out of East Palestine. People are concerned about the health. After a visit from President Joe Biden and a year anniversary gone by, business and assistance goes on in East Palestine. Now, business goes on as usual, and assistance programs and all the stuff that comes along with having a tragedy. But families continue to make headlines due to health problems like nosebleeds from their children and other stuff. Area health officials will also be looking at the data when it comes to respiratory visits to the ER out in East Palestine in your country, especially when it comes to cases like asthma or bronchitis. Folks, this story is still developing because this is not over yet. It's not over. It's been a year, but it's not over. Story number 7, big headline. Story number 8 at the top. Local headline and developing news story that made it this week. Whew. Shout out to Condoleezza Rice this Black History Month. I did get to read her memoir. I thought it was a good book. She looks at life from a political eye and says that she would have been able to do the things that she would have been able to do in life if she have not been elected into a higher office. Condoleezza Rice this Black History Month. Condoleezza! Story number 8. Finance report in Youngstown looks good. The financial report. Youngstown Finance Director Kyle Miasak says that the city's finances are in the best shape they've been in years, according to a report published February 16th. The city started the year with a $3.4 million surplus. If you did not know, City Council has until March 31st to pass the 2024 annual budget. The American Rescue Plan funds can be credited for the boost in the city's finances. Folks, the article ends with Miasak citing job growth as the new goal for the city. And that's what we got this story in, because we're talking about money and jobs. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well. That's www.method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Aunt Tasha, she said that you can be dumb and still make a lot of money.
Don't be deceived, okay? Just get the work done. Get your work done, graduate, you'll be successful. Don't be deceived. I told you that. Now hit the books.
Mom's not coming back, is she, Dad?
What test scores again?
Every teacher is in here day and night, and it's not our fault.
Uriah aced her random proficiency test because you helped her. She's the first student in the city's district to ace that test.
So did he pay?
No, who only paid half?
Apply the pressure.
Hey, get that mess out of here! Titi, you picked this district, Titi. I'm going to Puerto Rico. Me voy a Puerto Rico, Titi. Cálmate. Calm down. ¿Cómo que me calme? How am I calm down? You had us come here, Titi. How can I protect myself? That's all I need for you to help me with. How do I protect myself?
Oh, they're not going to hurt you.
If this is what I get for being a good student and acing a test, I'd rather have failed.
I never told you that being good would be easy.
Clear target, cannot miss.
Home for his little girl. Take me.
They're in danger.
I won't tell you how this is going to end, Laura, but my history professor once told me, in order to prevent a genocide, you first have to kill the dictator.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, this is Black History Month, and I had a chance to look at some stories that were coming in. And there's one story I watched. It was a basketball fight at a college. And these basketball games, I mean, they must get intense. This was after the game. Good game. And the kids were fighting. Throwing basketballs, referees slinging. And one thing you notice when people are fighting in basketball, they kind of float from one section of the court to the other, and the cameras are always following it. The sports announcer, he's always conflicted inside. Oh, I wish they just stop. Oh, this is unnecessary. And everybody can get hit. Everybody. When I was watching it, I see one swing, another swing. I said, man, this is crazy. Basketball has changed. And then I was noticing at the All-Star game, the basketball players scored 200 points. Over 200 points. So when I looked at this, I said, man, times have changed. Back in the day, you look at an All-Star game, they probably score about maybe 100 some points. He scored 200 points. So I had to go back into the Chronicles of Mediation and figure out what has been causing all this craziness in basketball. Why are people so frustrated? Fighting. Biting each other and throwing each other. So I went back and I had to figure out what these basketball players were eating. What are they putting in their diet? What are they listening to before the games? The Chronicles of Mediation are heating up. Come to find out, they were powering up off of the Chronic. Not only is it the Chronicles, but basketball players have been smoking the ganja. And that's what's changing the game. They're not only high when they're playing, but they're so high that they're lobbing up three-pointers from half court and making them. Basketball players are high. That's what's changed the game. Whew! Well, folks, let's waste no time. How high can we go? How high can we go? How high can these basketball players go in mediation? Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. The citizenship story. Speaking of how high. In a time when immigration stories continue to flood the headlines, USA Today has a piece on how the cost of U.S. citizenship is about to rise. The report goes on to explain how more than 9 million legal permanent residents in the United States are eligible to apply for U.S. citizenship but haven't followed through. The article goes on to explain how green card prices will go up also. I was just kidding. I don't know if the basketball players are high or not, but the green card prices are going up. Story number 1, big headline. Story number 2, assessing retirement. Middle-income Americans are on alert because when in a financial crunch, people lean on their retirement, if you didn't know. The report goes on to highlight ethnicity as a factor because Black and white Hispanic adults may struggle financially the most and may not be prepared for retirement the most. The report in Business Insider points out some important numbers and decisions being made in the field of retirement and financial decisions. Folks, this story is still developing. So story number 2 made in this week. Story number 3, protecting America's youth. Young people continue to die at alarming rates in America, many before they're even conceived in the womb. The story made it in after a 12-year-old boy died at a wilderness therapy program in North Carolina. Now, according to the report, this is not uncommon. If you did not know, this story made it in because even in a time of booming wealth and access to assistance programs, kids continue to be left in harm's way. This includes mass shootings and gun misuse stories also. The Atlantic also has an article sounding the alarm on America's teenage girls. So story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4. What are cities doing to combat homelessness? NPR has an article highlighting how the Supreme Court will hear a major case that could reshape how cities manage homelessness. The article goes as far as mentioning fines and legal issues which could lead to the arrest of people sleeping outside and if there is no shelter available outside on the streets. Now, this is at a time when homelessness rates have climbed and when affordable housing problems persist. Go on. Now, some towns are already taking action, folks. This story is still developing. So story number 4 made it this week. Well, folks, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'll be right back with the top 4. So don't you go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Full of the dark that the presence has brought us, facing the rising sun as our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. Folks, it's the end of Black History Month this year. We are talking about schools also and the teachers and what they've got to go through. I mean, you go into some of these schools, the kids are bad. Whew. So bad that locally, an 11-year-old brought a gun to school. How in the hell do you operate a gun at 11 years old? Whew. Kids are so bad, they're screaming at the teachers, throwing desks. Folks, it is bad. So bad that kids are starting to do drugs at an early age, and nobody can figure it out. How are these kids so bad when they have medicine, they have shock treatment, they have cartoons, toys, little wiggly toys that they can play with? They have so much, and the kids are still bad. They're concerned that the kids are not learning anything, but they sure do know how to solve problems. Soon as somebody gets upset, teacher gets upset, the kid pulls out a weapon. Ooh, solves all the problems. So this Black History Month, shout out to the teachers, African American teachers, all teachers actually. And maybe we do need to bring back some whips and chains. That's what some people are thinking about. We don't want to think like that. But we do need discipline. Don't tell people that I told you that if we go back to when they wanted an education, they couldn't get it. They had to be whipped in chains. And now that they can get an education, they act like they don't want it. So maybe we should bring back the good old ass whooping. It's not to be considered, but there are some people who think about it. I look at some of these teachers, they look exhausted. Well, folks, I made a song for the teachers, and it's called Love is a Lesson. Baby, you got to feel loved. Even when you've got a bunch of bad children running around, acting like they ain't got no damn sense, hanging off the damn walls like them monkeys, doing all types of crazy stuff during Black History Month when you're trying to have a Black History program, talking about we should overcome. Whew. Well, folks, that's my sermon for this week. If bad were bad back in the day, they would have used bad things to make people good. But now there are good things and they're still bad. So what do? Do you go back to bad to make good? Do you go back to whoopings to make good? Let's waste no time, folks. I've exhausted myself talking about these children and this new age schooling. Let's get to it. Story number 5. How real is the teacher shortage? Speaking of schooling, Business Insider has a piece stating that a high school committee in Massachusetts has asked the National Guard for help in what appears to be a teacher shortage in a time when there seems to be a rise in violent incidents and substance abuse amid a staffing shortage. So all this is happening in the midst where they need teachers. And this is in the last few months. Now, this report highlights a continued issue spreading across America's education centers when it comes to schools in need of good help after the COVID meltdown. This was story number 5, made in this week. We are still waiting for Superman. Big help. Story number 6, the low-income problems. The Guardian has a piece reporting on how Nebraska's governor has accepted federal dollars to feed low-income kids. Low-income stories seem to be a growing talking point in communities tormented by lack of good-paying jobs. What got the story in is the fact that just last month, Jim Pillen joined 14 other Republican governors in opting not to enroll in summer EBT programs. Then he later changed his mind. He later opted in. Now, the federal program provides low-income families with a monthly payment of $40 per child during summer vacation. The story is yet another story sounding the alarm on America's low-income problems, because this proves that if you cave in, obviously it must be needed. Programs for children, they must not be eaten. That's why this is a highlighted topic ending Black History Month. Big. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. Let me get that right. Go to one ear. It goes in, it comes out. You hear yourself speaking. This story number 7 we're going to highlight for Black History Month to top it off. Malcolm X. I got to read his book, and Malcolm X was a different figure. He lived a violent life, later converted to Islam. He watched his father die. He lived a life serving the public, serving Black American needs. He served under the what they call back in the day the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who later turned out to be not what people found out. The scandal broke, and then Malcolm X found himself alone. He was later assassinated, but he was an advocate for Black problems and Black issues, Black education. He always felt he was needed for the Black people. He found himself alone when he died because he had separated himself from Elijah Muhammad's circles, but he was inspired. And like I said, these figures come in all religious colors and creeds, but Malcolm X is remembered for his he wanted to see Black people do better, and that's what we're shouting out this African American History Month. Even though he served Islam, he still is considered a great asset in the Black history books, because they come from each religion. Some even come from Catholics. In the local community, they have Bishop Murray, so they come from all different sects: Baptists, Islam, Catholics. They're all over. Jews. So let's get to story number 7. Story number 7: how important is the immigration story? Folks, cost, law, and opportunity costs seems to be the most important issue keeping the immigration story alive. According to NPR, Texas has spent over $148 million busing migrants to other parts of the country. Texas transported over 102,000 migrants to New York to New York, Chicago, Denver, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. Folks, this story is sounding the alarm for citizens in need of this money and these programs and resources that these people are getting access to, thus making this a very, very important story staying in the headlines. One story in The Atlantic blames the federal government's dysfunction in Washington, D.C. period for the migration crisis. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 7 almost made to the top this week. Big. Story number 8 at the top. International headline and developing news story that's made it this week. Shouting out for Black History Month, General Colin Powell. General Colin Powell lived a life. He said that if he had to have structure in his life, and that's what being an Army general did for him. General Powell led the United States through a lot of conflict, especially in the Middle East. So this Black History Month, we're remembering General Colin Powell. Salute you. Story number 8. Labor, the American population, and immigration. Destined to make it to the top. Business Insider says that Americans are not having enough kids. That means we're not populating our own country, and the country is looking to immigration as the answer. Wow. The piece goes on to say that the U.S. population is expected to peak, and goes on to say how this could be bad news for the economy. The piece goes on to say that economists feel that immigration is one way to keep the population rising. If you want to read the articles, big headline. Now, the piece explains how China, Japan, and Italy are dealing with the same issues. Labor is also a part of this story because there is consistent news in circulation about companies and complaints when referring to the American work ethic. They're saying Americans are not working hard enough. Now, one headline in NBC News says that a Tennessee firm employed miners to clean meat saws and head splinters at a slaughterhouse. That's how desperate people are for work. Now, according to the piece, the kids were as young as 13 years old. This is illegal due to the nature of the business under federal laws. Now, the question is are businesses this desperate, like I said, that they would prefer to break the law just to get some labor? Folks, this story is still developing. That's why Story Break made to the top this week, folks. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I thank all the news outlets and journalists and people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the man in the middle. I'm searching for the man in the middle, navigating your stories just to keep people informed. Well, folks, I am out of here. If you want to show us some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Or you can stop at the store at 5648 Market Street and buy something in the store that's in Boardman, Ohio. 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio. I can see my smiling face at the store. Well, folks, I'm out of here. I'll be back next week looking through over 200 or more stories to keep you informed. Thank you for tuning to The Mediator this week. The Mediator with me, Brian West. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.